Emanuel gvurot Yisrael atan mivnei ein b'chodor yakum hagibor goel ha'am. Emanuel gvurot Yisrael atan mivnei ein b'chodor yakum hagibor goel ha'am. Shema bayamim hahen hazman hazeh lakat b'Moshiach ufadeh uvyamenu kol am Yisrael yitached yakum layigael. Who can retell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero or sage arose to our aid. Who can retell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero or sage came to our aid. Hark! In days of yore in Israel's ancient land, great Maccabeus led the faithful band. But now all Israel must as one arise, redeem itself through deed and sacrifice. Who can retell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero or sage came to our aid. Who can retell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero or sage came to our aid.
Oh Hanukkah, come light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance a hora. Gather round the table, we'll give you a treat. Dreidels to play with and latkes to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night, they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. One for each night, they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. Oh Hanukkah, come light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the hora. Gather round the table, we'll give you a treat. Dreidels to play with and latkes to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night, they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. One for each night, they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago.
Chagurim Sameach, happy Hanukkah, Shabbat Shalom. It is a pleasure to be with you this evening.
הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. 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 סביבון סוף 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 חג שמחה הוא לעם. סביבון סוף 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 חנוכה הוא חג טוב, חג שמחה הוא לעם. נס גדול היה שם, נס גדול היה שם, חג שמחה הוא לעם.
It is such an honor and a delight to be with you. Which do you light first, the Hanukkah candles or the Shabbat candles? Do you remember? Do you? Well, I suppose we've kind of given it away. We've lit our shamish, our helper candle already. And we now join in those blessings as we kindle the lights for this second night of Hanukkah.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Chanukah.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim lavotenu, vayamim hahem, b'hazman hazeh. Ma'otzo Yeshuati, lechana v'shabeach, tikon betefilati, v'sham toda nizabeach, le'etachin matbeach, mitzar hamnabeach, az egmor b'shir mizmor, Hanukkah Mizbeach, az egmor v'shir mizmor, Hanukkah Mizbeach. Rock of Ages, let our song praise your saving power. You amidst the raging foes were our sheltering tower. Furious they assailed us, but your arm availed us, and your word broke their sword when our own strength failed us, and your word broke their sword when our own strength failed us. We continue singing our way into Shabbat with the melodies of Hanukkah. This next one comes from musician Shira Klein, Shir Lala, who will be joining us in concert for Havdalah tomorrow night at 5 o'clock on our YouTube channel, on our temple's page, on our website, and I invite you to join with us. Here's a little bit of a sneak preview.
Nes gadol haya sham, nes gadol haya sham, nes gadol haya sham, nes gadol haya sham, nes
gadol haya sham, nes gadol haya sham, nes gadol haya sham, nes gadol haya sham. Nes gadol haya sham, 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 nes gadol haya sham. Gadol haya sham, gadol haya sham.
Shabbat Shalom, Tracy and Mike. Shabbat Shalom to Penny and David, Irene and Alan, Joyce and Ruby and Natalie and all who are joining us. I invite you now to turn in your prayer books, if you have them, to pages 2 and then 5 as we kindle the lights of Shabbat and then say our Kiddush, our blessing over the sanctity of this day. We're inviting congregants to join us for this piece, and if you wish to do so, all you need to do is add a comment in the chat box, send me an email, and we'd be delighted to follow up with you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner Lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. The heaven and the earth were finished in all their array on the seventh day. God finished the work that God had been doing, and God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of the creation that God had done.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kadsho, v'ahava u'ratzon inkalanu, zicharon l'maaseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom tehillah mikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'charta, yatanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodeshecha, yava uvratzon inkaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat.
We're so excited to join you for this Shabbat Hanukkah, this Shabbat during our holiday of Hanukkah. It is a pleasure with all of these lights lit to bring so much light into a dark time of world and to be able to welcome one another as we welcome the Sabbath itself. As we turn to page 20, there finding words of Lecha Dodi.
Lecha dodi likat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'diboh echad, Hishmiyanu el ha'miyuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'l'nidhilah, Lecha dodi likat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likat Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki mekor bracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof maaseh b'machshvat tchila. Lecha dodi likat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, toreri, ki va'orech kumi ori, uri, shir daberi, kivonai alayich nigla. Lecha dodi likat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam v'simcha v'tzola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lecha dodi likat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
On pages 26 and 27, entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and in unlikely places. There is no place on earth without God's presence. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah,
Amen.
V'amad yivrachute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon u'yomechon, uv'chayedecho beit Yisrael, bagala, uv'izman kariv v'meru. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach, Le'alam Olam Me'amaya. Yibarach v'yishtabach v'par v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal Shemei Kedusha B'richu Le'elam Yincho Berchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran be'alama v'meru. Amen. As we turn now to page 28, we rise in our spirits, or we rise in our place and in our spirits, as we join in words of Baruch Hu.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai.
And on the bottom of page 30, our prayer with the onset of evening. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, who skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly course according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from another. Adonai Tzevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on in the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. Pages 34 and 35, Shema Yisrael, the watchwords of our faith.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
So I realize we live in somewhat hyper-partisan times. We live when it's hard to find common ground with your neighbor, and it makes me a little reticent to even ask this question. But it is kind of the biggest question of our day right now. Applesauce or sour cream?
I'm team applesauce. All the way.
Definitely team sour cream. We have a little dividing line down the kitchen. Where do you shake out? Which is better with your latkes? Is it applesauce? Is it sour cream? Do you go for the savory? Do you go for the sweet? Do you add a lot of cinnamon and try to meet in the middle?
Is there something else that we should know about that we should be putting on our latkes that we haven't yet?
Ooh, a Pittsburgh tradition perhaps we haven't heard of?
Maybe like the pierogi topping on top of the latkes?
Yeah, but that's sour cream, so that should win in this neck of the woods, right? I hope you will let us know in the comment box and sharing any favorite recipes with us you may have as we continue now with our Michamocha praise, continuing in the melodies of the season found on page 40.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed.
All right, friends, we need to talk about this. There are a lot more applesauce people than sour cream people. I'm a little bit concerned. I do love Robin's interpretation, latkes with sour cream, lox, and capers, and Rachel, while I love you, ketchup? I'm curious what else you might put on your latkes this time of year. Please let us know as we continue in our service. I'm in the English on the top of page 43, and I hope you'll join me. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukkot shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. And on the following page, page 44, words uplifting the sanctity, the holiness, the joy of Shabbat.
V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורתם בברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם בברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם, עוד היא לעולם, עוד היא לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם בברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם בברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ונפש, שבת ונפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם בברית עולם.
I see that there are many who have a divided home and saw some really creative possibilities. Hot sauce is making a strong comeback, whether that is a hot pepper jelly, whether that is sriracha or some other flavor. I guess it adds a little bit of kick to your taste buds, just as this holiday adds a little bit of life, a little bit of spirit, a little bit of kick in this dark time. I'm excited to have with us Rabbi Jessica Locketz this evening, who will lead us in our Shabbat Amidah. Those words can be found beginning on page 46 in your prayer book.
We continue with the tefillah, the central part of our service. Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi tehillah. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohe Avraham, Elohe Yitzchak, Elohe Yaakov, Elohe Sarah, Elohe Rivka, Elohe Rachel, Elohe Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Koneh HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei V'Nehem, L'Ma'an Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Vezrat Sarah. Tagi Burli Alam Adonai, Michaye Kol Atarav Lahoshia, Mashiv HaRuach Umorid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Berofech Oholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar milchamocha ba'al gevurot umido melech memit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua v'nemaneh lahachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai Mechaye HaKol. Takadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yechalu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el HaKadosh. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
To this central section of our service, we add the prayers that sustain us, that match the needs, the wants, the challenges, the struggles, the joys of our day. Silent prayers of gratitude, silent prayers of yearning, silent prayers of hope for a world yet to be. And we continue with the songs, the prayers of Hanukkah. This one of my favorites. If Yiddish is the normative language of the Ashkenazic Jewish community, a combination of Hebrew and Yiddish, Ladino is the common language of the Sephardic Jewish community, a combination of Spanish and Hebrew. And I hope you like this melody as much as I do.
Ocho candelas para mí. Muchas fiestas vou fazer con alegrías y placer. Muchas fiestas vou fazer con alegrías y placer. Oh, una candelica, dos candelicas, tres
8 candelas para mí. Los pastelicos voy a comer con almendricas y la miel. Los pastelicos voy a comer con almendricas y la miel. Oh, una candelicas, 2 candelicas, 3 candelicas, 4 candelicas, 5 candelicas, 6 candelicas, 7 candelicas, 8 candelas para mí.
On page 253 in our prayer books, we find words of our Mishaberach Lecholim, our prayer for those who are ill and in need of our healing powers, that of doctors, that of research physicians and scientists who have been working so hard on a vaccine, as well as God's healing presence, God's guiding of their hand and our hand as we seek to take away a bit of their pain. If there are those you are thinking of this Shabbat in need of a prayer for healing, healing of mind, of body, of spirit, I invite you to say their name aloud. I invite you to post their name in the chat. I invite you to call our attention to those in their time of need. Words of Mishaberach can be found on page 253.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Limahotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
As I was thinking about a message, as I was thinking about a story that I wanted to share with you this evening, I chose something that was, well, maybe a little bit tongue-in-cheek and maybe a little bit of fun for adults and young people as well, though I suppose it needs a little bit of a setup. If you live in Upper St. Clair, tomorrow is the day where you might think there is a natural disaster with sirens going off all over the neighborhood. It's not the case. It is just the attempt to spread a little bit of holiday cheer by putting Santa Claus on a fire truck. It works for so many in our society, and it might be a good day for the Meyer family to go on a hike. We recognize that it is a challenge to have one of the only houses on the block without festive lights, without decorations, though I am so in awe of the wonderful and creative decorations that I've seen in our temple community. I wanted to share with you a fun story, Lemony Snicket's The Lotka Who Couldn't Stop Screaming. It does reference Christmas a lot in an attempt to separate, to provide a distinction, to put forward the true meaning of Hanukkah, and I hope you like this as much as I do. This story ends in someone's mouth, but it begins in a tiny village more or less covered in snow. The snow had fallen during the long night, during which children had pressed their faces to the windows, looking for a glimpse of the man whom they suspected of bringing them wonderful gifts. But instead, they heard a terrible noise from a certain cottage in the neighboring arrondissement, a word which here means place where something was being born. The cottage was already regarded with some suspicion, as it was the only place not decorated with flashing lights for this time of year. The thing that was being born was a latke, a word which here means potato pancake. Latkes are a traditional part of the celebration of Hanukkah, a holiday commemorating a miraculous Jewish military victory. Nearly everything in this world is born screaming, and the latke was no exception, even though the latke wasn't conceived and born the way you and I were conceived and born, but instead was fashioned from grated potatoes, chopped onions, beaten eggs, and a dash or two of salt. Once these ingredients were properly mixed, the latke was slapped into a pan full of olive oil, heated to a very high temperature, and this is when it began to scream, "Ah! Ah!" The latke was suffering so much that it leapt out of the hot pan, out of the window of the cottage, and began running screaming down the boulevard. "Ah!" This may seem like unusual behavior for a potato pancake, but this is, after all, a Christmas story in which things tend to happen that could never occur in real life. The latke ran past a row of flashing colored lights which hung from rain gutters of a less suspicious cottage. "What's all the ruckus?" the lights said in unison. "We're the ones who are supposed to be dominating the entire neighborhood with our colorful glow." "I was just thrown into a pan of boiling oil," the latke cried. "Can you believe it?" "Yes," said the colored lights, "but we can't imagine why." "Because I'm a latke," said the latke. "The olive oil reminds us of the oil used to rededicate the temple following the defeat of Antiochus at the hand of the Maccabees. The oil was only supposed to last for one night, but there was a miracle, and it lasted for 8. Plus, frying makes my skin crispy and brown." "So you're basically hash browns," said the flashing colored lights. "Maybe you can be served alongside a Christmas ham." "I'm not hash browns," cried the latke. "I'm something completely different. Ah! Ah!" The latke rounded the corner and found itself face to face with a candy cane, which wrinkled its red and white nose at the latke in distaste. "I'm trying to sprinkle the night air with my peppermint scent," the candy cane said. "Your mouth-watering smell, not to mention all that yelping, is spoiling the effect." "My mouth-watering smell is part of the cozy feeling of Hanukkah," the latke replied. "It reminds us that things are better now than they were in the 175 BCE, when my people were not allowed to practice their religion. In order to study Torah, they had to hang out in caves. When they heard Greek soldiers approach, they pretended to be gambling with a small spinning top called a dreidel." "Sort of like Joseph and Mary in the manger," said the candy cane. "Someone should write a Christmas carol about you." "I'm not part of Christmas," cried the latke. "It's a totally different thing." "Ah! Ah!" The screams of the latke grew quieter and quieter as the pancake ran out of the village into the surrounding forest. Its utter fury was unabated, a phrase which here means the latke was still very annoyed at the objects to which it had spoken. But it was also quite tired, and so it decided to rest for a minute beneath the branches of a little pine tree. The pine tree was napping, but woke up at the sound of an object plopping down at its feet. "Are you a present?" the pine tree asked. "Presents are pretty much the only thing allowed to sit beneath me during this time of year." The latke sighed. "Presents aren't really a big part of Hanukkah," it said in a voice hoarse from screaming. "There's nothing wrong with giving gifts to loved ones, of course, but it's more important to light the candles for 8 consecutive nights, to commemorate the miracle in the temple and the miracle of victory, even when you are thoroughly outnumbered, so you don't give up hope." "Plus, Santa Claus," said the pine tree. The latke was too exhausted to bother screaming. Santa Claus has nothing to do with it, the Locketz said. Christmas and Hanukkah are completely different things. But different things can be blended together, said the pine tree. Let me tell you a funny story about pagan rituals. Before the pine tree could begin its story, a family came trooping through the snow, searching the forest very carefully. We shouldn't have waited until the last minute to get ready for the holiday, said the father, who was holding an axe. We'll never find a good one. You shouldn't give up hope, said the mother, and pointed at the pine tree. Look! It's perfect, said the daughter. Beautiful, agreed the son. Such a marvelous shape, said the mother. And its skin looks so crispy, said the father, and reached down and scooped up the latke from the snow. We'll need to reheat it, of course, but this will be the perfect Hanukkah dinner, with a topping of applesauce or sour cream or even jam. I'll refry it in oil, said the mother, to remind us of the rededication of the temple. And the triumph of the Maccabees over Antiochus, added the daughter, and hiding in caves all that time, the son chimed in. The father smiled down on the latke in his mitten, then stared curiously at his other hand. What was I even thinking, bringing that axe, he said to himself. The family strolled back to the village, walking past all of the cottages with their flashing colored lights, and smiled politely at the candy canes until they reached their own home. The family carried the latke into their home, which was warm and cozy, and sat down at the table, which was lit with the flickering candles of the menorah, or Hanukkah, with its branched candelabra design specifically for the holiday. It's very frustrating not to be understood in this world. If you say one thing and keep being told that it means something else, it might make you want to scream. But somewhere in this world, there's a place for all of us, whether you are an electric form of decoration, a peppermint-scented sweet, a source of timber, or a potato pancake. On a cold, snowy night, everyone and everything should be welcome somewhere, and the latke was welcomed into a home full of people who understood what a latke was and how it fits into this particular holiday. It can be a challenge, right? To be able to explain this holiday as part of a minority culture in America. This tongue-in-cheek, this satirical work by Lemony Snicket, it won't surprise you that it was published by McSweeney's, offers us a little bit of an outlet for the frustration that we might feel this time of year. And yet we realize that is in many ways what this holiday is about. To be able to stand tall, to be able to know who you are, regardless of those forces buffeting against you, to reclaim not only that miracle, but that history, to stand tall and proud, and in the case of the latke, crispy, is what this is all about. And I thank you for putting up with me as we made our way through that story. We continue now, page 282. There we find words of Aleinu L'Shabeach, and I invite you to join us.
Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol, L'Tet Gdula L'Yotzer Breshit, Shelo Asanu Gurye HaRatzot, V'lo Samanu K'mishpachot Hadama, Shelo Sam Chelkenu Kahem, V'gor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam, V'anachnu Korim, U'mishtachavim U'modim, Lifnei Melech, Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nemar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz. Bayom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad. U'shemo echad.
Our thoughts now turn to our loved ones who have departed from this earth, those of our family and friends, the righteous of all nations. As we pray Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for us an everlasting blessing. We observe the period of Shloshim for Paul E. Fitting and Lorraine S. Simon, and we mark the yahrzeit, the commemoration of the passing of Raymond Berkowitz, Erwin H. Brand, Louis Cantor, Ben Chizik, Mary Lou Delancey, Herman Dixon, Lena Eisenberg, Jacob Feldman, Maurice Fishman, Esther Geller, Joseph Goldhammer, George Gorin, Lawrence Hoffman, Margaret Kidder, Edith Lacey, Bertha Lebau, Laszlo Lowy, Sarah Rebecca Malloy, Jeanette Mayberry, Beatrice Miller, Herman Moltz, Teresa Morgan, Barbara Bobby Myers, Jesse Rogalski, Sarah A. Rosenberg, Alex Rosenthal, Ruth Eisenberg Rubenstein, Trudy Savransky, Estelle Schechter, Elsie Schneier, Zelda Schlitt, Jerry Silverman, Phyllis Ann Taxon, Ellis Thompson, Harry Zakowitz, Lillian Ruth Zangwill, Morris Zeichner. To their names we add the names of all of our loved ones, and I beg your forgiveness if I have mispronounced the name of your loved one. I invite you to share their names aloud, that their memories might come flooding back as a source of consolation and uplift during this difficult time. May their memories be for us an everlasting blessing. The words of Kaddish Yatom, our mourner's Kaddish, can be found on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon v'yomechon, V'chayei b'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'gala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam v'lamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal, shemei d'kudsha b'richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God, who makes peace in the highest of heavens, make peace for us and for all who mourn. And together we say, Amen. It is such a pleasure to be with you this Shabbat, even those of you who like applesauce on your latke. I don't know what to do with you people, but I'm glad there are some other sour creamers in the congregation. And I'm excited to introduce to you our closing song this evening, written by Rabbi Joe Black, The 8 Nights of Joy. Well, it's a fun one. Take a listen.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nights of joy. From the streets of Tel Aviv to Chicago, Illinois. Hanukkah is fun for moms and dads and girls and boys. Yes, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nights of joy. Each night we light a flame, menorahs burning bright. The blessings we proclaim as we celebrate the night. Spin the dreidel and remember how our people were set free. We sing and tell the story of Judah Maccabee. Oh yes, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nights of joy. From the streets of Tel Aviv to Chicago, Illinois. Hanukkah is fun for moms and dads and girls and boys. Yes, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nights of joy. 8 small candles standing in a row. Put them in the window and we all can see the glow. And though it's dark outside, our faith it will abide, remembering those miracles that happened long ago. Oh yes, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nights of joy. From the uptown Lebo streets to the fountain at the point. Hanukkah is fun for moms and dads and girls and boys. Yes, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nights of joy. Rebecca! 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nights of joy. From the streets of New York City to Chicago, Illinois. Hanukkah is fun for moms and dads and girls and boys. Yes, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nights of joy. Yes, we're going door to door,
Lighting the menorah.
oceans to the shore,
Lighting the menorah.
having lattes galore,
Lighting the menorah.
7 days and 1 encore.
Lighting the menorah.
Yes, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nights of joy. From the streets of Steeler Nation all the way to Charleroi. Hanukkah is fun for moms and dad and girls and boys. Yes, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nights of joy.